Let's do a little bit of meditation on anger and loving kindness, and then I'll take some questions. So this mindfulness meditation we're doing, we can divide up all different kinds of meditations. So what I'm teaching here is based on the Buddhist tradition. Right? But these things can be used in any combination with any religious belief system, or independent of any religious belief system in a secular way. But it's based on Buddhist teachings. So we can divide up all the different kinds of meditations. There's many different ways to meditate, different things to meditate on, but they can all be divided into two basic types, right? So the one is, I mentioned earlier, placement meditation, which usually when we say mindfulness meditation, we mean placement meditation, placing our attention on one object of meditation and just keeping our attention fixed there without thinking about things or doing anything else, without imagining anything or trying to do anything more, just keeping our attention focused on an object of meditation without any further activities. Placement meditation. So that's like shamatha, that's one kind of meditation. Within placement meditation, there's different kinds according to the topic, right? According to the object of our meditation. We can practice placement meditation focused on our breath, or focused on our mind, or we can visualize an object, like a visual image of a flower. We can mentally imagine image of a flower or something else and focus our attention on it. We can also generate a certain attitude, like loving kindness. We can generate loving kindness and then just focus our attention on that. It's kind of more complex, sort of basic placement meditation. And usually when we're meditating, so the other kind of meditation is called analytical meditation, or vipassana, right? So it's where analytical meditation, it's not simply focusing our attention on an object and holding it there, but rather it's thinking about, again, we focus our attention, but instead of focusing our attention on a static object, we think about a set of questions. We analyze and use our reasoning, or we try to generate a certain attitude. So like loving kindness also, it involves elements of analytical meditation, because we try to generate a certain attitude, right? So it's not simply keeping our attention focused. Or like, especially when we meditate on anger, it's more analytical, right? We're thinking about, well, when is the time that I became angry? Well, how did that arise? Why did I become angry in that specific situation? How did I feel then? What kind of thoughts arose in my mind then? How might I deal with a similar situation differently in the future, right? So we're thinking about all different things. So there's many, with analytical meditation is much more dynamic and much more diverse, because there's infinite kind of different questions and things that we can think about, right, in meditation. So when we're doing analytical meditation, again, we try to keep our attention focused, but the focus is not so narrow as like just our breath or just our mind. It's not so static, but rather the focus is a set of questions or a set of issues that can expand and we can develop. But in the case of analytical meditation, there is distraction. Distraction is when we find ourselves thinking about something totally unrelated, right, or paying attention to something totally unrelated to what we originally set out to think about. Okay, so there's placement meditation and analytical meditation. Most times when we do meditation, we use both, right? So again, in a normal, say a meditation session where we're going to think about anger, the faults of anger, or what is anger, how to reduce anger, why should I reduce anger or not, can be a question. But say we're going to do a meditation related to anger, suffering, something. So again, we start with posture, then we generate a positive motivation, then there's the main part of the meditation session, and then the dedication at the end. So in the main part of the meditation session, usually it's good to spend a few minutes first just doing mindfulness meditation or placement meditation to generate some mental focus. Just watch our breath for a few minutes until we feel like our attention is somewhat focused. Because in ordinary life, we have to deal with a lot of different things. We have to wash our face, make breakfast, we have to clean up the room, we have to deal with you know, talk to our parents, maybe get to work, and then, you know, all day we're busy with a lot of different things. So naturally our mind is stirred up. So then when we sit down to meditate, naturally our mind is going all over the place. So to have some good focus, high quality of attention while we're meditating, first it's good to spend a few minutes just focusing our attention by practicing placement meditation and watching the breath. Right, so it's said when we have, especially when we have a lot of discursive thought, a lot of distraction, the easiest way to calm down discursive thoughts is watch the breath in the way that I just showed you, where we watch the whole process of breathing. Right, watch the breath come down, fill the abdomen, and then go back out with the exhalation. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And so by watching that, watching the breath come in and flow out of the body, it's kind of like watching the waves. You know, when you're on the beach, in the ocean, you just watch the waves. Kind of the movement. There's movement there, so it's not so static and boring, but it's very simple and repetitive. So it naturally sort of calms the mind down and helps us focus better. So, so we spend a few minutes doing placement meditation, and then once we have some mental focus, then if we want to do analytical meditation, then we shift our attention to a set of questions or issues or whatever that we want to think about. So in this case, we want to, we'll look at anger a little bit. Again, there are different ways to look at the issue of anger. And when we're doing analytical meditation, usually it's where we especially combine study with hearing explanations and then contemplation, thinking about, and then trying to take that understanding to a deeper level through meditation. Right? So there's this threefold process of, like, you know, in the case of anger, like learning about anger, reading books and hearing explanations. Well, what exactly is anger? What are some of the benefits maybe of being angry? What are some of the drawbacks? Are there any benefits? Are there drawbacks? What are they? What are the, you know? And then so then we learn something from an external source, and then we take it into our own world, right? Bring it into, relate it to our own life experience. Well, who are the people I get angry at? What are the situations I get angry? What are the kind of conditions? Like maybe when I'm hungry, or when I'm tired, or when I'm very, you know, overworked, I'm more prone to get angry. And then how do I express anger? Am I someone who just becomes very, I just kind of bite my lip and just stay quiet, or do I become very vocal? And does it last for a long time, or do I get over very quickly? So there's all kinds of things we can think about. So first we learn, the more we study and learn about, you know, anger in different ways, the more we have kind of different material to think about, resources to draw on when we're doing our own analysis, examples to compare our experience to. And then, so the more we study, then the more we have to contemplate. And then the more we contemplate, when we meditate, the deeper we can kind of bring our understanding of anger. We can bring it very deep because we've thought about it a lot in many different angles. So for example, when we're meditating on anger, one way to think about it is, well, what I want to do actually now is think about, like, when we're angry at ourselves, we can have different objects of anger. Sometimes we can be angry at ourselves about something. We can be angry at another person about something. We can even be angry at inanimate objects, inanimate things, not people, but like, you know, like maybe, what's that kind of, when you put powder on the ground in a nice design?
Rangoli.
Rangoli, yeah. Maybe we spent like a whole hour making an elaborate, beautiful rangoli because guests are coming and then it rains, right? And we get angry at the rain, you know, or something. So we can get angry at inanimate, or our computer, like, you know, we just drafted a long kind of essay and then our computer like crashes and we lose it all. And we get, you know, irate at the computer company or something. So we can even get angry at inanimate objects. And then also we can look at, analyze anger by experiencing when we ourselves get angry, right? But we can also look at the phenomena of anger by thinking about, well, when I'm the object of someone else, we might, you know someone who gets angry at us. And try to think about, well, what is happening in their mind? The anger that exists in their mind, what is going on there? And compare it to when we get angry. Or we can also, you know, sometimes we're a third person. There's one friend angry at another friend, or one family member angry at another, and we're just the object, we're not, you know, we're not the object, we're not the person getting angry, we're not the object of the anger, we're just watching what's going on. That can also be a very informative way to think about anger. What's going on when one person gets angry at another person. So those are different ways, you know, to think about anger. Yeah, there's many So, but we don't have so much time now, and we want to get some experience. So let's just look at, again, we'll just get comfortable in our posture, then briefly think about our motivation, and then briefly just watch our breath for like 30 seconds or so. And then, so we'll think about anger. I suggest, again, you can do whatever you want. You don't always have to do exactly what I'm suggesting. But I'd suggest we start by looking at a time when we got angry at ourselves. So we have to think of, an experience in the past. Hopefully you're not angry at yourself right now. Think of some experience in the past when you did something maybe you felt was, foolish or stupid or, inconsiderate, and you got kind of upset with yourself. So again, maybe just to, well, not again, but to clarify more, anger, well, what are some of the things, how do we define anger? So this is also, as part of this, looking at the time you get angry at yourself, you can also think about this, well, exactly what do I mean by anger? How do I distinguish between, something that is anger and something that's not? So some of just to help you, give you some kind of clues, and then we'll refine this definition as we go on. But in general, anger is not a positive state of mind, right? It's a negative state of mind, which means probably it doesn't make us feel good, but makes us feel bad. But is that the case? I mean, everything you should question. Generally, we'd say anger is disturbs, causes disturbance in the mind, right? Rather than peace. But again, you can ask, is that true or not? So generally, it's a disturbing emotion. Generally, it's not looking at positive qualities in someone, so in this case ourselves, but looking at negative things, looking at faults, right? Things that we think are bad or faulty or wrong or mistaken. So it focuses on those, and generally, it focuses exclusively on things we see bad or wrong about ourselves or others, and it blinds us from seeing positive things about ourselves or others at the time we're angry. It's difficult to see something positive about someone at the time we're angry, at that moment we're angry. And then it also causes, our adrenaline to rush. It's a very highly emotive state, right? It can quickly become very powerful emotion. So it can cause our adrenaline rush, our blood to pump faster, blood to come to our face, and then can lead us into, actions that are harmful. So oftentimes anger goes together with the intention to harm, right? Harm ourselves or harm another person, either just mentally by thinking, oh, I wish this would happen to the person, or verbally by insulting, or even physically, in extreme cases. So those are some of the ways to maybe help you start thinking about. But you want to refine it. I mean, that's just a very gross. Just saying in words, it's like explaining to someone, what masala dosa tastes like. You need to taste it yourself. So that's what we try to do in meditation. Try to look at your own experience and see exactly what is anger. Okay? So so let's do it. So get comfortable in your meditation posture. And then briefly generate the intention to gain some benefit, to create some benefit for yourself, for others, by doing this meditation. And perhaps to reduce the harm that comes about through anger for ourselves and others. And then let's watch our breath for a minute. Bring your attention to the breath, just like before, in order to generate some mental focus. Just breathe naturally, and watch each moment of each breath. Try to fully be aware of and observe each breath. So then let's turn our attention to this analytical meditation, looking at anger. So try to look at anger when we've been angry with ourselves. So we look at a situation in the past. So we'll try to remember that situation very vividly, kind of place ourselves in that situation again. Try to remember exactly what happened, building up to the moment of getting angry. And then during that, the time we were angry, how did it feel? How did it affect us afterwards? What kind of actions of body and speech did it lead to? So some things try to think about in the experience and try to understand exactly what do I mean by anger. When I was angry at myself, what things was I focused on? Was the mind looking at? And then how did it feel? Were there any benefits or any drawbacks? To being angry at that time. And maybe I'll throw in a couple other questions later on. Right? So bring yourself back to an experience, you're angry at yourself, and just try to objectively look at it and learn to understand more about exactly what anger is in terms of the feeling that accompany it, the objects that the mind of anger observes. And whether it's beneficial or harmful. So take about 5 minutes. Think like that. Meditate like that. minutes, think of some other instances of anger, being angry at yourself. Maybe try to think of some other examples in the past when you got angry at yourself. And see if what are the commonalities that run through those experiences. Is there any pattern? Either for the cause, getting angry, or for the feeling of the experience itself. The reasons you got angry at yourself in those different times. And how long did it last? And was there a way that, how did you get over it? What are the different thoughts and feelings that arose at the time? During that time you're angry at yourself. So try to think of some other examples. And kind of refine your understanding in that way. For about 3 more minutes. And relax your attention. So just don't focus your mind on anything specific for a minute or two. And then we'll do some loving kindness meditation. So let's meditate again for 5 minutes on loving kindness. Loving kindness is very simple. So again, it can be directed towards another person or towards oneself, or even towards inanimate objects. But we'll do directed towards ourselves. So just turn your attention towards yourself, your body, your mind, your whole person, your whole life. And the attitude of love is just wishing that one be well and happy. Right? So just try to generate the wish. You can repeat the words to yourself in your mind. May I be well and happy. If you like, you don't have to repeat, words or a phrase. You can, recite something or repeat something similar, but to generate the intention. May I be well and may I be happy. And then you can also reflect what that means for yourself in terms of health. Your physical health, your mental health, in your life, things being good, going well in your life, prosperous, or good relationships, or patience, intelligence. But you can kind of, digress a little bit, thinking about what does that mean for me to be well and happy. But then always come back to this refrain, generate this sincere intention as much as you can. May I be well, may I be happy. Try to increase the intensity of that intention more and more. So we don't have very long now, so we'll just meditate for about 5 minutes on loving kindness in that way. Right? So direct your attention towards yourself, and generate the intention, may I be well, may I be happy. things from there. And then, so we'll just dedicate now at the end of the meditation session. So, one way to easily dedicate is just to kind of expand the attitude of loving kindness. So you can think that by the force of whatever positive energy we've created in this session, first we can rejoice, think how excellent it is we've come here with a motivation, purely to benefit, not to gain profit or fame, or not for selfish reasons, worldly reasons, but to become a better person. For whatever positive reason we've had, and we've created merit by engaging in this session, so rejoice, think how excellent it is. Can rejoice in one's own virtue and the virtue created by others. So then think by the force of this positive energy, then may I and my family and friends and the people of the same country, the same planet, human beings, animals, whatever creatures exist, who are the same as me and wishing for happiness, wishing to have well-being, happiness, and wishing to be free from suffering, then may they have these just as they wish. Especially may all beings be free from sickness and have perfect health. Especially may this coronavirus outbreak that's spreading from China may quickly come to an end. And may all the sickness, other kinds of sickness, cancer, AIDS, tuberculosis, polio, all come to an end. May those who are sick be healed. And those who are hungry may be fed. Those who are thirsty may drink. Those who are impoverished may have wealth, prosperity. Especially those who have severe mental illness, may they be free from those. Schizophrenia, depression, so forth. And those who are lonely have companionship, friendship. And all those who have died recently, may they quickly take a precious human rebirth, with the best possible circumstances to continue on the spiritual path is best for them. And may all of our own actions only bring benefit to ourselves and others in the future, and never bring even the slightest harm to ourselves or others. And then bring to mind any other prayers you'd like to make. May all those prayers be accomplished in accordance with your wishes. So we'll stop there. Your question about Stoicism, I didn't get to. I don't know that much about Stoicism actually. I've read one of the most famous Stoics is Marcus Aurelius. He has a famous book called Meditations, which I've read. But I think he's not one of the main Stoics. Seneca is an ancient Greek school of ancient Greek philosophy. Seneca is one of the main Stoics. But my impression from reading his is that one difference is that, Stoicism is kind of like typically resignation to just accept whatever comes. Stoically, like I just accept whatever happens as a function of nature. That I'm part of nature, there's a whole natural environment. So it's sort of physical, or largely physical. There's a natural physical environment. I'm a product of that. I'm part of that. So all the different experiences that come, that's just the way it is. It's kind of bound to be, sort of destiny. And so the more I can just accept that, then the more content and peaceful one will be, and happier one will be. Yeah, and there's some definitely, I mean, the strategy here is a little different. There's definitely share some elements of that, accepting what, what we are and what happens, accepting it with kind of resignation, being resigned to that, okay, that's how it is. But I think in Stoicism, to my impression is that there's not so much sense that we can change, that something better is possible and we should strive for that, but rather striving for something better is seen as kind of a redundant kind of activity, because nature controls like what is possible. So, whereas in Buddhism, there's much more the sense that, well, it's possible to become a Buddha, to become fully enlightened. So this infinite good is possible for oneself and for, especially in the Sanskrit tradition. Like there's the Pali tradition and Sanskrit tradition. Especially in the Sanskrit tradition of Buddhism, the Bodhisattva path. There's the acceptance that actually every sentient being, everyone with a mind, has the potential to become perfect, fully enlightened, eliminate all faults, eliminate all causes of suffering, and perfect every cause of happiness. And we should strive for that. So I think that's quite different from Stoicism. And so the project is more to, well, identify what are things that cause suffering and cause harm, and reduce those in one's own mind and behavior. Reduce those, and what are the things that cause happiness, and increase those as much as we can. So it's a little more proactive, I think. No, he asked a question earlier in the break about what's the difference between what we're doing here and Stoicism. Stoicism. Stoic. You know, Stoics. It's an ancient Greek kind of philosophy. Kind of. S-T-O-I-C. S-T-O-I-C. A Stoic, or S-T-O-I-C. Yes. Okay, so that's all. Maybe any other questions I'll address tomorrow. There'll be much more time tomorrow for questions. Yeah. So today we looked at mindfulness meditation, and meditation on anger, analytical meditation looking at anger, and then meditation on loving kindness. Right? So we'll go in more depth and detail and practice those more tomorrow, all day. So please come. And practice tonight.
It's 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Yes.
We're starting at 11 a.m.
11 a.m., yeah.